They called me a failure, mocked my every move, and laughed behind my back. Years later, they showed up, smiling. What they asked me next, I'll never forget. I knew I was not like the rest of them from the time I was 8 years old. That was the day my science project went missing, the one I spent 3 weeks on, built from old computer parts and taped up wires. While my older brother Zach got a pat on the back for bringing a shoebox diorama of a volcano that did not even erupt. That night at dinner, I asked Mom if she had seen it. She shrugged and said maybe I misplaced it. Zach laughed, said he saw me throw it in the trash myself. They believed him. Without hesitation. That is how it always went. Zach was the golden boy. Big smile, captain of the high school football team, family favorite since birth. I was just Jared. Too quiet, too slow, too weird. I heard them say it more than once when they thought I was not listening. That boy lives in his own world. My dad, Ron, used to joke that I was the family's creative one. But not in a good way. More like, Jared's always off drawing weird stuff, should probably find something useful to do. Every achievement I brought home was met with a blank stare or a dismissive grunt. When Zach passed a class, we went out for burgers. When I got into advanced placement, Dad said, just make sure you don't screw it up. I remember once asking my mom why they never came to my school events. She said Zach had practice. As if that explained everything. The worst part was not the insults. It was the silence. The absence. That feeling like you were furniture in your own house, seen, but never really seen. By the time I was 17, I stopped trying. Stopped showing them my sketches. Stopped mentioning my small wins. What was the point? Every time I tried to be noticed, it just made the gap feel wider. I started spending my nights in the garage, working on old electronics I found at the junkyard. There was this busted VCR I turned into a homemade projector. I remember being so proud until Zach called it a garbage light show. Mom told me to be realistic when I mentioned wanting to study design. Dad said, college ain't for dreamers. Get a job. So I did. Quietly. Without their help. I saved every paycheck from my minimum wage shifts at the gas station and signed up for online courses. No fanfare. No birthday cards. No support. I left that house on a rainy Thursday morning. Told them I was moving in with a buddy. No one stopped me. I do not even think they looked up from the TV. But what they did not know, what no one knew, was that I was building something. Something real. And I had no intention of ever going back. Until the day my cousin Rachel called and said, "Hey, your parents are asking about your company. They want to know if you're hiring." I froze. My hand gripped the phone like it might crack in half. Because after all these years, they finally noticed me. And I was not sure if I wanted to be noticed anymore. I used to wonder if maybe I was just overreacting. Like maybe every kid felt left out sometimes. But when you live it day after day, year after year, the truth gets harder to ignore. Zach was 2 years older than me, but it felt like a lifetime. He was loud, charming, the kind of kid adults called a natural leader. Me? I was the one they forgot to pick up after school. The one who had to ask twice just to be heard. There was this moment, burned into my brain like a bad tattoo. 8th grade awards night. I had won first place in the state art competition. State. Out of hundreds of kids. They called my name. I went up to the stage, and when I looked out into the audience, my family's row was empty. Turns out Zach had a last-minute basketball dinner. My parents chose that over me without hesitation. Later that night, when I got home, Mom glanced at the certificate and said, "That's nice." Then she asked if I could help clean up the kitchen. That was the night something inside me started to harden. I stopped expecting anything from them. Stopped hoping they would see me the way they saw Zach. He got a car on his 17th birthday. I got a toolbox my dad had already used for 5 years. No wrapping paper. Just tossed on the couch like a forgotten package. Sometimes I think the only reason they even kept me around was because I never fought back. I stayed quiet, went along with everything, never asked for more. But I was not idle. I had plans. While Zach was out partying, I was watching YouTube tutorials on coding. While my parents were focused on his games and college tours, I was building simple websites and flipping old laptops on Craigslist. The summer I turned 19, I took a leap and started my own thing, a tiny design and repair business from a rented shed behind a pawn shop. It was not glamorous. It smelled like mildew and gasoline. But it was mine. At night, I would stare at the cracked ceiling and whisper to myself, "Keep going." That was all I had. No cheerleaders. No backup. Just grit. One night, after 3 straight no-show clients and a busted laptop that fried mid-repair, I sat there in the dark with my head in my hands. I almost gave up. But then I heard my dad's voice in my head. He'll never make it. That lit something in me. So I kept building. And the funny thing is, no one even noticed I was gone. Not really. No calls. No visits. Until one day, someone from my hometown tagged me in a photo. Me. Standing in front of my first real storefront. A little studio with my name on the sign, Jared's Lab. 2 weeks later, Zach sent me a message. Hey man, heard you're doing well. We should catch up. I stared at the screen. Because after 20 years of being invisible, now they were starting to see me. I kept Zach's message unread for 2 days. Just stared at it every time I opened my phone. We should catch up. Like we were old friends, not two people who had not spoken since I left without a word. Back when I was younger, I used to dream about moments like this. Those movie-style scenes where the underdog finally wins, and everyone who doubted him comes crawling back. But real life is not like the movies. It is messier, quieter, and sometimes more bitter than sweet. Still, curiosity got the better of me. I replied. We met up for coffee at this local spot near my shop. I showed up in a hoodie and jeans, same as always. He was wearing business casual, trying to look like he had it together. Zach talked a lot. About work. About his girlfriend. About how he was between jobs but exploring opportunities. I nodded, sipped my drink, and listened. Then came the real reason he had reached out. So, he said, I heard your business is doing well. Any chance you're hiring? Just part-time. I could help with marketing or something. I did not say no right away. I just looked at him. Looked through him. Because this was the same guy who once told me I would be stuck flipping burgers while he made 6 figures. The same guy who used to call me the garage goblin because I spent all my time tinkering with wires and motherboards. Now he was asking me for a job. I told him I would think about it. Not to mess with him, but because I genuinely needed time to process how I felt. Was it pride? Resentment? Maybe a little bit of both. After that, the requests started rolling in. My cousin sent a message saying she was so proud and wanted advice on launching her blog. Aunt Linda asked if I could help her son fix his laptop as a favor. My dad even actually called, and asked if I would swing by to help with a little tech thing. Suddenly, the same people who told me I was wasting my time now needed me. But here is the twist. I still had not made it. Not really. My shop barely broke even most months. I was living out of a tiny studio apartment with paper-thin walls and a busted heater. My success was still mostly just momentum and hope. What they saw online, the storefront, the Instagram posts, the occasional good review, that was the tip of the iceberg. What they did not see were the nights I slept in the shop because I could not afford gas to get home, or the time my card got declined at the grocery store and I had to put back a loaf of bread. But even in those low moments, I never went back. I never asked them for anything, because I had learned something in those years alone. When you build quietly, no one can take the credit. And when you rise without them, they can never say they lifted you. That realization kept me going. But what came next? That shook everything. A month after that coffee with Zach, my business had its first viral moment. It started with a customer, some high school teacher who had spilled soda on her laptop. I fixed it for cheap and threw in a data recovery she did not even ask for. She cried when I told her all her lesson plans and student projects were safe. She posted about it, tagged my shop, said something about honesty and heart in a world full of shortcuts. Her post got shared, then reshared, and then it exploded. Suddenly, people from all over the state were messaging me. I had emails from small businesses asking for quotes, influencers asking for partnerships, even a tech magazine wanting to do a profile on the local guy building trust through repair. I barely slept for 4 days. I hired one part-time guy named Mason just to keep up. Orders doubled, then tripled. And just like that, Jared's Lab was real. Not just a shed behind a pawn shop. Not just a dream. It was something people believed in. That was the night I let myself feel it, just a little. I stood in the back room after closing, the place lit by that one humming ceiling bulb, holding a box of finished orders. And I smiled. But good news has a way of making old ghosts wake up. The next day, my mom showed up. No call. No warning. I was at the front desk, adjusting the new display shelf, when I saw her through the glass. Same old coat, same pinched expression. She looked like she was coming to return a library book. I opened the door. She stepped in like she owned the place. This is nice, she said, eyes scanning the walls. Smells like wires. I did not say much. Just nodded. Then she got to it. Your father says your business is doing very well. We were wondering if you might be able to help your cousin Travis. His gaming computer broke. It is urgent. I just stared at her. Travis, the same cousin who once put gum in my hair because I talked weird. The same one who laughed when Zach used to call me failure boy. Now he needed me. Sure, I said. Tell him the rates on the website. I'll fit him in next month. My mom blinked like I had spoken another language. You're charging him? I nodded. That was when I saw it, the flicker. That little moment where her face shifted, just slightly. Not anger. Not sadness. Surprise. Like it had never once occurred to her that I could say no. That is when I knew. I had changed. And they had not. But I was not done growing. Because what came next? That would rewrite everything. After that visit from my mom, something inside me started clicking together. Not out of anger, though. Yeah, there was some of that. But more like clarity. I realized that my whole life, I had been trying to earn their respect using the wrong currency. They valued flash. They valued obedience. They valued whoever made them feel most comfortable. I valued persistence. That same week, I rebranded the shop. Hired a local artist to paint a mural on the side. This big, bold design of a cracked circuit board coming back together like a scar healing. Under it, in block letters, I had them paint, built from nothing. Orders kept growing. My inbox was full of speaking invites, podcast requests, even a local business award nomination. I still worked 12-hour days, sometimes more, but now there was fuel behind it. Momentum. I moved out of my studio apartment and rented a 2-bedroom above a bookstore downtown. Nothing fancy, but the ceilings did not leak, and I could finally afford furniture that was not from someone's curb. That first night in the new place, I sat on the floor with takeout and watched my website analytics climb. It felt like watching a slow, silent miracle. Then, out of nowhere, came the real shock. A package from my dad. I almost did not open it. Thought maybe it was a bill or some old junk. But inside was a photo. Me, age 6, holding a screwdriver, grinning at a busted toaster. There was a sticky note on the back. All it said was, "Guess you were always meant for this." No, I'm proud of you. No apology. Just that. But it hit harder than I expected. Because even a scrap of recognition from him felt like standing in the rain and suddenly feeling one ray of sun. The next day, I got another message, this time from Zach. Not asking for a job. Just, let me know if you ever want to talk. I think I owe you one. I thought maybe this was the twist. Maybe they were changing. But I was wrong. Because what happened next made me realize they were not just noticing me, they were circling me. And they wanted in. It started with an invitation. Zach texted again. Said the whole family was doing dinner at this new steakhouse that just opened near the lake. It would mean a lot if you came. For a second, I almost said no. But something told me to go. Maybe part of me still wanted to believe they had changed. Maybe I wanted to see it for myself. I showed up in my usual clothes, clean button-up, jeans, decent shoes. Nothing flashy. But when I walked in, it felt like I had stepped into some kind of weird play. Everyone turned and smiled like I was a guest of honor. Zach stood up to clap. Mom waved me over like I was royalty. Even Dad got up and pulled out a chair. I sat down. The small talk started. They asked about my shop, my logo, my plans. Each question wrapped in sugary tones but stiff smiles. I kept answering politely, waiting for the catch. And then it came. Zach leaned in. Said he had been thinking a lot about entrepreneurship. That he wanted to maybe partner on something. My fork stopped halfway to my mouth. He pitched me a full plan. A gaming lounge connected to my repair services. We'd be a team. You bring the tech. I bring the business charm. I looked around the table. Everyone was nodding, smiling, waiting. Even my dad jumped in, talking about some old contacts he had from back in the day. It hit me like a slow wave. This was not dinner. This was a pitch meeting. They were not proud of me. They were prospecting me. They saw the momentum, the name, the buzz. And now, suddenly, they were a team again, when I had built it all alone. I wiped my mouth with a napkin, told them I appreciated the offer, said I would think about it. Zach looked satisfied. My mom patted my hand. Dad raised a toast. But deep inside, something shifted. Not anger. Not sadness. Resolve. Because I finally understood. Success does not erase how people treated you when you had nothing. It just exposes what they really valued all along. And I was about to prove it. That dinner sat with me for days. Not just in my stomach, but in my chest. Every smile, every compliment, they were like echoes of people I had once begged to believe in me. Now they wanted a seat at the table I had built out of scraps. I spent that whole week wrestling with it, asking myself if maybe this was growth. If maybe I should be glad they were finally trying. But the truth was, it felt like a buy-in, not a reunion. So I decided to set some boundaries. I called Zach first, told him gently but firmly that I was flattered, but the answer was no. My shop was not something I built to impress people. It was something I built to survive. And now, to thrive. He took it better than I expected. Said he understood. Said he respected the hustle. Then he asked if I could still help him find a job in tech. That confirmed everything I needed to know. A week later, I held a small open house at Jared's lab to celebrate our 3rd anniversary. Local businesses came. A few influencers. Even the mayor popped in. We had snacks, a little music, some giveaways. Nothing huge, but it felt right. Toward the end of the night, I spotted my dad in the crowd. He stood by the mural, staring at it like it meant something. I walked over. He did not say much. Just nodded at me and said, "You did good." It was not warm, not tearful, but it was more than I ever got before. And for once, I did not feel like that little kid trying to earn his approval. I just felt steady. "I know," I said, and I meant it. That night, after everyone left, I stayed behind to clean up. Mason offered to help, but I told him to go home. I wanted a minute alone. I stood in the middle of my shop, and took a slow breath. I had built this. No shortcuts. No handouts. Just long nights, cracked fingers, and the stubborn belief that maybe I was more than what they saw. I walked to the front window and flipped the sign to closed. But something told me the real story was just opening. 2 weeks after the open house, I got an email that made me stop breathing for a second. Subject line: "We love your story." It was from a national tech chain, a real player in the space. They wanted to discuss a potential partnership, maybe even an acquisition. At first, I thought it was a scam, but it checked out. They had seen the write-ups, heard about the shop with heart. They liked the branding, the mission, the fact that it was built by someone who knew what it meant to have nothing. They wanted to buy in, but only if I stayed in control. That was the deal breaker for them. I had to stay the face, the name, the mind behind it. I spent 3 days in silence just thinking. It felt like a test of loyalty, of pride, of self-worth. Because part of me still feared what it would look like. Would they say I had sold out? Would my work mean less if it grew beyond that little shop? But another part of me, maybe the part that had once believed I was not enough, realized this was the exact kind of door I had once prayed would open. I called their rep. We set a meeting. I walked in wearing the same hoodie I started in, because I needed to remember exactly who I was. They laid it out. A multi-year partnership. Expansion. New locations. A team. A real salary. Stability. And still full creative control. I took the deal. Not because I wanted to prove anything to my family, but because I finally did not have to. 2 days later, the announcement hit the news. Local boy makes national waves. Jared's lab becomes something bigger. My phone blew up. Messages from friends, customers, even old classmates. And then the one I knew would come. "Mom." She left a voicemail. "We're so proud of you, sweetheart. I always knew you had it in you." But I remembered every time she had said the opposite. Then Dad called. "Looks like you're finally one of us." That one made me laugh. Because I had not become one of them. I had become myself. But what came next? That would test everything I had learned. It was a Sunday when Zach showed up at the shop. No call. No warning. Just like Mom had done weeks earlier. He stood by the door with that nervous smile he used to wear when we were kids, and he had done something he was not supposed to. "Can we talk?" he asked. I let him in. We sat at the back bench, the one I used to sleep on during overnight builds. He got right to it. His company had folded. Burned through cash. Investors gone. He was being sued by a former partner. The whole thing was a mess. He had heard about the deal. Knew I had options now. And he was not there for a job. He was there for money. "I just need a loan to stay above water," he said. "A bridge. I will pay you back. I swear." I looked at him for a long time. This was the same brother who once told me I would never amount to anything. The same guy who laughed when I fixed my shoes with duct tape. The one who made fun of my first client because she paid in gift cards. But this time, I did not feel anger. Just a deep, settled calm. Because this was not about revenge. It was about self-respect. I told him I was sorry, that I wished him the best, but I could not do it. Not because I did not want to help, but because I knew what it cost me to build this. And I was not going to spend it on people who only showed up once the house was finished and the lights were on. Zach did not yell. He did not guilt me. He just sat there, stunned. Then he stood up and left without saying a word. I locked the door behind him. Later that night, I sat in the same spot and thought about everything. The lonely years, the silence, the small victories, the ugly moments, the growth. And for the first time, I felt something I had never truly felt before. Freedom. But there was still one thing left to do. One conversation I had been putting off. And it would change everything. It was nearly midnight when I finally picked up the phone. Not a business line. Not Zach. Not the shop. It was Mom. I let it ring almost to the end. Then I answered. Her voice was quiet. Almost unsure. We were just wondering if maybe you could come by this weekend. For dinner. She went on. Said Dad would cook. Said they wanted to catch up. Said they missed me. I let the silence sit between us for a second longer than was comfortable. Then I spoke. I appreciate the invite, I said, steady and calm. But I need you to understand something. Her voice cracked a little. Okay. I told her that I spent years begging for crumbs. For attention. For recognition. That I twisted myself into not trying to be what they wanted, and it was never enough. I told her that I was not angry anymore. That I did not hate them. But I also was not coming back. Not like before. I built something from nothing, I said. And I am proud of it. But I am not going to shrink myself just so you can feel comfortable again. There was a pause on her end. A long one. Then she whispered, I get it. I do not know if she did. Maybe she never would. But I finally did. This whole time, I thought I was chasing their approval, their respect, their love. But what I really needed was my own. The call ended quietly. No fireworks. No tears. Just closure. I walked out onto my apartment balcony. The city lights blinked in the distance. My shop's sign still glowed faintly from down the street. And I stood there, breathing in the night air. Because I was not the failure. I was not the lazy one. I was not the one who would never make it. I was the one who did.